Hi, guys, and welcome back to Confessions of a Wannabe It Girl. In today's episode, we're going to talk about beauty standards and, our understanding of beauty standards, what we think is beautiful, maybe what a different perspective from a possible different gender thinks. Do we think they are up, down, right, good, bad, upside down, and all the things? So without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Welcome to Confessions of a Wannabe It Girl. I'm your host, Marley Freygang, and I'm here to help you filter out all the bullshit and become the next It Girl. This podcast explores the reality of what it really takes to make it out there. As it turns out, it is way less Instagrammable than I thought it was going to be. I'm still very much a work in progress, but there's simply nothing else I'd rather be doing than chasing my dreams. So let's learn from my mistakes and work together to achieve our dreams with more confidence, clarity, and direction. Let's get after it. Hi, guys, and welcome back. Today we are joined by my fiancé.
First-time fiancé.
First-time fiancé.
Fourth-time podcaster.
I think it's more than 4.
It might be more than 4.
Whatever. Anyways, welcome back, babe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'll accept the pity invite back on the show. I'm kidding.
Anyways,
happy to be here.
I really wanted to get a male perspective on all things beauty standards.
And do guys even know what they are?
Right. Let's start there. What do you think the current beauty trends are? Why are you laughing?
Laughing because I'm thinking, I know that there's definitely like a set of guys who are like in this world, but as someone who's really not, like, I couldn't even tell you what some of the beauty trends are. Like, I know, like, kind of from just watching the way you dress, like certain things come back into style and out of style, and like, I guess maybe like the way you do your makeup or the way like, what accessories you have can be more important at different times. But I think based on your reaction and how much you're laughing right now, and this is why we want to do this episode, I have no idea and cannot explain it well. And I would venture to guess that most guys, specifically guys who have been in a relationship for a long time, would be, You mean clothes, right?
Right. I think it's funny that you automatically go to clothes, and I think style, can elevate a person's look. But what I'm literally talking about is looks, physical appearance, maybe a little bit makeup trends. We can talk about plastic surgery trends. What is, the trend, look, body, face, whatever to have right now. And, I think it's really fucked up that we say trends for things that
people's
are just
bodies.
Right. But that's the thing. It's a trend. It's
right. Like it's cool to be like curvy now, right? Where like before it was like not as like, maybe, is that right? Or like,
well, I'm curious to see what you have to say. So you think the curvy trend is
I think so, just from my ingestion of pop culture, not from any
2023, you would say.
I think for the last couple of years, maybe since 2022 or 2021. I don't really know. Because I don't actually follow it. It's like what my observations
are. But you don't know.
Right?
You don't notice your aesthetic on Instagram or on TV of who's popular and whatnot. You don't notice any trends in their look.
Brighter colors.
Okay. Well, so I'll take it from my perspective.
Yes,
now.
That might help me out.
So when we were kids growing up. It would be super interesting to hear your mom or my dad say this too, because they would probably think something else was in trend, what was considered chic at the time.
Sure.
But when we were kids, I would say early 2000s, we had and people talk about this all the time, a very, very skinny aesthetic, heroin. They literally call it heroin chic.
That's hilarious.
It means emaciatedly skinny.
Right. I do remember that though. It was you just wanted to be as skinny as possible. No definition, no anything.
Nothing. Almost skeleton. You look so almost unwell, and that was considered chic and skinny. And this is really where the world of 00 became the thing. Right.
When, you said, in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I'd say late 90s to early 2000s. Look at photos of Britney Spears, Kate Moss. They're very, very skinny and blonde also. That was, I think, somewhat the trend was blonde, blue eyes, very, very, very thin. So, but then if you go back even further, obviously there's the bombshell of Marilyn Monroe.
Sure.
Who's a curvy woman.
Right.
Not stick skinny.
No.
Voluptuous, boobs, ass, hips, thighs. that was considered like the bombshell of the time. So like it's very interesting that there are trends.
It kind of swings back and forth. And I would say the Marilyn Monroe look is definitely more in again. And the, what'd you call it? Heroin chic?
Heroin chic.
Heroin chic is...
Heroin chic. Heroin chic.
Heroin chic, sorry. Is... Wait, that's funny. Yeah, I mean...
You think it's on the out?
I think so. Well, but that could also be attributed a bit to like just kind of the culture change around like eating disorders and, you know...
Yeah,
I feel like people seeing... I mean, obviously there's always subsets that are like immune to kind of that sort of thing. It's like, well, like the goth group is always going to dress goth no matter, even if everyone else is wearing yellow, right?
Sure.
Like, but I mean, it is interesting that it does change. And then when you think of it from like the other side, I mean, I think with guys, like, I mean, I guess the dad bod is like a little more in than it used to be. But the thing is, that's kind of like, and what I think will be interesting about this episode is like, that's like the girls are like girls when they look at guys are like, oh, like dad bods are more attractive. But guys, when they look at each other, we're always like, well, we don't give a shit. Like,
really?
Nothing really. I mean, okay, I could be just speaking from kind of my like, there are people, that is my perspective. There are definitely people who care more about this, but I would say like the guy to guy beauty standards is more just like, oh, like, do you work out? Do you not? Whatever. Does anyone even really care? Like, people all look different. And there's, you know, it's more, I think what I'm trying to say is it's more like a style or a clothing style versus like with girls and girl to girl. And then it's more like everything you're explaining, the heroin chic to like the Marilyn Monroe more voluptuous. It's not only are there trends, but I think it's different kind of based on what gender you like are identifying as.
So that's where I think like the trend is now, in my opinion, we kind of had this curve come back in the Kim Kardashian 2014 body. And see, I hate that I'm saying because it's changed, because like love Kim, but like had work, had, you know, looked a certain way and was very curvy. And I feel like there was a huge push again for maybe like curvier bodies. You know, obviously heroin chic is not a healthy look. So I think we've changed a little bit in the media and we started to have this curvy look again. And now I actually think there's a little bit of a pushback for the really skinny look coming back in. And I think, you know, with Ozempic, like everybody loves talking about, do you even know what Ozempic is?
Yeah, it's like a weight loss drug.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like with Ozempic, everyone in the media feels like they're getting really skinny again. And it's, you know, talked a lot about, and I feel like we're having a slight praise again towards being
really
more,
skinny. Not
really skinny. Maybe it's not quite as skinny, but a skinnier look.
And
I don't, it's fucked up because it's a trend. It's like, it's not good. It's not bad. It's just kind of what I think is happening. But you still think we're in the curvier.
Yeah, but again, that's like from the, that's why I said what I said a minute ago. That's from like the guys looking at the girls, guy to girl kind of perspective, right? Like, I think guys are, oh, this is like what is attractive and in, like, okay, cool. But once it's like in with guys, it doesn't really like go out. It's like, oh, that's attractive. Right. Cool. That's still going to be attractive. The styles change, those things change. But to your point, like in the media, and again, in certain circles, because I'm speaking from my perspective, but the girl to girl thing is more like, it's like a pendulum. Like you said, it's had a swing where everyone was this way, but now now there's too much like this, or it's been static on the curvy side. Now some people start breaking back to your point,
right?
The more skinny side, and then people go, whoa, look at that. And then they like follow and it swings back that way. And then eventually everyone will be really skinny again. And then some people will be more Marilyn Monroe-like and
it's just like, it's, you know, it's fucked up because it's like kind of like where we see the trends in plastic surgery go, you know, or, you know, altering our appearance, you know, which I think, you know, is important to note that, you know, you're making your body something that it's like how when we were kids, having like piercings and tattoos looked very different than how people have piercings and tattoos now. Like things change and it's like, you know, crazy that you manipulate your body to fit those things. But do you guys even...
Which is a big thing.
Right, which is a big thing. Do you even notice, like when you guys are talking about, you know, maybe back in the day when you were single, you know, if a girl or somebody is attractive guy or a girl, do you notice these things or you're just like, yeah, they're good looking? Like it's a general blanket?
No, it's definitely a general blanket.
Right.
Right. It's like non-discriminatory. Like I mean, like some girls are really skinny and you're like, damn, that girl's really hot. And then some girls could be very, what you say, voluptuous and very like
More
big
curvy.
ass, big tits. And they could even be like a little heavy. It doesn't even really matter, but it's like, that's hot. And then of course guys have their preferences too.
Right. It's subjective.
But it's subjective. Of course it's subjective, but like even though it is subjective, it, in my opinion, and you know, other guys can check me on this, but in my opinion, it's definitely more of a blanket. Like if you're hot, you're hot. And there's also people who say like, yeah, I think that girl's like really attractive, but it's not like, maybe I'm more into skinny girls than curvy girls.
I see that a lot with men because when I look at men, I'll be like, oh, they're very attractive, but like it's like not, I don't think that like is what I'd be attracted to. It's just like, I can see that you're a good looking person.
Yeah,
right.
sure. That's exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was trying to say.
Okay,
you
cool.
just said it better than I could.
Oh, thanks. So do you think there's like a generational gap between what people see as being, you know, beautiful or the look?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think your generational view is on beauty?
Well, I think it's what you said, what we grew up in the early 2000s. And I mean,
very skinny look.
Well, I think it shifts, but I mean, I also think, you know, different generations will look at it differently, but that doesn't mean there's not a shift within those generations.
Mm-hmm.
And the shift within those generations can also be like different than the generation above. So like maybe like the Gen Xers were really into curvy and now they're into skinny, but we were really into the
What do you think
millennials
Gen
were really
Z's, like true Gen Z, because like we're kind of cusp on being zillennials. What do you think they see as the beauty standard?
See, I mean, I'm not in that generation, so it's hard for me to tell, but it seems like they just don't fucking care. Like you can look
that's
whatever,
so nice to hear.
Look like whatever you want, and I would say I wouldn't say it's that. I mean, there's obviously always going to be more of like the cultural standard or whatever, but I think in the Gen Z group, it's more like, I don't want to say there's not a cultural standard, but it's more focused on you like what you like. Like your preference can be anything. That's what they like. And there's more of like an individual preference versus like we were all, you know, the Britney Spears and NSYNC were all, because even the guys too, they were all skinny. It's not like they were big, buff, macho
they're pretty
heads.
lanky.
They're all skinny, you know, baggy jeans, lanky.
Yeah,
so,
like Eminem.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It definitely was translating between
JT, same thing.
Yeah. I mean, NSYNC and JT, but I mean, I will completely own up to the fact that like I feel as though I am someone who's completely a product of media. Like as a kid, you know, you would see those ads on TV. It would be like for puff paint, and it'd be like, look at how amazing this puff paint is. Call this number to order. Like I'm the kind of kid, that would get my parents to call and like order the things. So like I'm very impressionable by media and marketing. And I think I'm very honest about that fact. I think that's part of why I have this podcast.
Yeah, sure.
But so I feel as though as a child, I was extremely affected by the 2000s blonde, skinny, long, lean, typical look.
Yeah, the kind of punk like vibe.
It wasn't punk. I think it's like the pop star look.
Yeah,
like
pop star,
blonde, pop star, whatnot. And then, you know, going into college, I also feel like that time period weirdly affected me a lot too, which is, you know, kind of like the deep rise of the Kardashian look, which is, you know, they're Armenian and, you know, more curvy, naturally or not, unsure, you know. So I have two very interesting times hitting me in a very different way about what I think is beauty. But when I end up scrolling on TikTok, sometimes I notice that I am back to seeing a lot of the same look, which is like that very commercial blonde skinny look, because I think subconsciously, no matter what, I will always have this idea that that is the beauty standard.
Sure. Well, so it's interesting you say that because I read this article about music, and it basically says like your music taste forms between the age of like 8 and like 16, basically. Like,
yes.
The stuff you listen to then, like that, even 30 years later, that's why like older generations will be like, turn that noise off, and then they'll go to like it's just kind of how your brain works. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of, obviously not the same thing, but some sort of parallel with like you grew up with that in your most impressionable time. So that's kind of what your default vision of your beauty standard is.
Oh, no, I think it's 100% because, you know, they also talk about how things that happen to you in your childhood will like innately affect you for like the rest of your life.
Sure.
It's the same thing. It's very impressional. It's when you're developing what you think the world is.
Your worldview.
So if you see the world looking this way, you're going to be attached to those things.
Yeah, sure.
Going on like what you notice and like what maybe is different between guys and girls. You know, there's the whole conversation about editing photos and that we post on social media. I think social media is so much how we consume beauty this day. I mean, I can't tell you, you've never watched a fashion show in like your life, right?
Not true, but basically.
Oh, you've watched the Victoria's Secret fashion.
Of course, every rite of passage.
Again.
But I would say I don't think I've really seen any other. Maybe like one
fashion.
or two. Just like, I mean, my parents would put stuff on and we'd just watch what they had on when we were kids, but not really, you know?
Right. So it's like, do you notice in media, like on social media, which is how I think for the most part we consume the idea of beauty.
I agree.
Do you notice if a girl's photo is edited? Or a guy's photo is edited? Can you tell the markers?
I'm gonna go with no because it's not because it's a capability thing because it's just not something I pay attention to.
Right.
I think subconsciously, but I also think let's step back a level. I think at least let's from a guy's perspective. I think there's two types of guys. There's on social media specifically. There's probably more than two, but we'll make it black and white. There's the guys like me. My bio is literally social media is for memes and memes only. I post pictures of the cats and you. I follow
hasn't changed
sports.
his profile picture since before we were dating.
Yeah, like I just so the concept of putting something curated on there, it's totally lost on me. I don't give a shit, and I know, and I purposely say something like my bio.
Right, but that's what you choose for yourself.
Right. So let me say because that's one category. I think there's a lot of guys that just like don't really care. They use it as an information source and for memes, but it's not like a compare and despair place. It's not quite like that. And for the other group, I'm not saying the other group of guys, it's all compare and despair, but they, are more interested in curating a look and, they're into
for
what
their
it is.
personal profile?
For their personal profile.
Okay.
Yeah, for your personal profile, basically. And so guys on my side, like we're not looking to social media as like, to your point, where you consume a lot of beauty from.
Right.
But that's only, not everyone's like me. And I have a lot of friends, guys, who are on the other side of that, which is not like basically in on the same kind of thing you are. Like you do consume, you're getting your maybe you're getting news and stuff there, but you're comparing all these influencers and celebrities. Like I don't like, I think I follow like a few influencers, but like, and then, like stuff that's relevant to my career that I'm interested in, of course, but like
in sports.
That's
what you follow.
Yeah. I guess sports influencers count. Right. But,
yeah.
But there's the whole other side, which is more prevalent than the group I'm talking about, which I find myself in is, yeah, it's really where you get all your beauty standards are. So just because I don't notice those things, I almost go in with the filter of everything's edited. This is all bullshit. I'm on social media. Nothing is true. But I am unable to recognize that just because I've blanketed it and I'm not into it. But the other group would probably be able to not only recognize it, but they might take cues. They might see like their favorite like gym, like a guy could see their favorite gym influencer do something and see like there's an edit to make your biceps look a little bigger, and they might be like, you know what, like I'm gonna do that too.
Right.
Like maybe they're trying to get a girl, maybe they're just trying to look cool, maybe they're trying to flex what they do, whatever it is. All the people.
But do you know they did it? They made the edit. You just always assume they made the edit.
I basically I assume. I mean, I don't assume it in the sense that everything I look at is edited, but I don't look at something thinking like, oh, this is probably a clean 100% representation of like what was going on.
I mean, I don't think social media on any platform can be 100% clean, unedited, because
I agree, but
it's not real life. It's no matter what curated and produced.
I just think there's a huge chunk of people who maybe they do know it's curated and produced, but they can't separate that from reality.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think, I don't know if I can't separate it from real and reality, but I fall into that category a little bit. Like, I know all this stuff. I follow accounts that showcase how celebrities look on red carpets, up close with quality cameras versus when that photo's been photoshopped or it's different. And I follow a lot of accounts like Celeb Face too, that talk about influencers who edit their photos, and then when they're spotted in public, they look very different. And I follow a lot of that, and they expose the editing too. And I will still get on Instagram and believe that's exactly how this person looks, lives, be. And like, I'm aware, I have a whole podcast about it on some level, and like, I still fall into it. I still fall into it.
Yeah,
and it probably comes from insecurity, because you're looking at these people being like, they look like this, and like,
it's also the nature of the platform, though.
You think that's how it's built?
That's how. I mean, I wouldn't say it was built with that intention, but I think the way it's evolved based on just I mean, I'm getting nerdy, so I will try. But
That's okay. We like it.
Based on like the algorithmic way that these platforms work and how they're built and how the user experience is built to engage users, it can only work and be something that why does someone keep going back to Instagram or Twitter or any of these other ones? But like, there's all these other, one-off apps that people have tried to make that are a copycat, and they like kind of fall away, mostly because they weren't the first movers. But it's the user engagement, the way it engages. You need almost a, if quote unquote controversy, not controversy,
Clickbait.
but clickbait. You need your cult of personality. You need your, this is going on. Everyone can publicly see it. It's the public, it's the town square, whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone go crazy. So like those accounts you should follow that post that stuff, someone posts looking beautiful and then they have a high quality camera and they look insane. And then the influencer's like, shit, I got to look that good. And then they edit their photo and everyone's editing the photos. And it's just this culture of trying to look perfect. And then that's where, to your point, what you were saying before, that's where it all comes in, because now everyone's trying to look perfect. Maybe that's why you forget for a second. It's the nature of the repetitive nature, the keep scrolling, the stay on the app. It's a competition. And the competition is look on the trend.
Right.
Or you're like me and you're just like, I'm going to look at memes and news. But
yeah,
the bigger
but
category,
that keeps you on the platform.
It does.
So that works for you. But what keeps me on the platform is seeing things that I maybe want to look like, want to be like, things that are cool, whatnot. I do also see a lot of like places like in LA to go to. I look at a lot of that.
Well, I mean, it records your preferences, but that goes back to my original point.
It records your preferences. Yeah. Yes.
Yep. That's what goes back to my original point. It's all because of the nature of these platforms. Stuff like we're talking about, even, me debating about sports online, or, following all the sports, you following the shows and the beauty standards. They're all separate segments of like a greater circle, and they're all just different sides of the same token. It's because of the way the platform is that these things happen. It's just expressed differently within the subcultures of beauty or sports or whatever you're interested in.
But I think it's so interesting because it's saying that, especially I think TikTok tells you what you subconsciously are into and like, and what will keep you on the app, because it will continue to push that kind of stuff at you. I mean, sure, with Instagram too. I just notice it more with TikTok, maybe because I'm there more.
At the risk of being technical, we'll be real quick about it. It works more on TikTok because of the, it's not as easy to look at a photo and then say someone was on a photo for 10 seconds and then swiped away. Yeah. You don't know if they liked it or commented or shared it. Okay, then they're interested, and that's a preference. But it's harder to glean, well, if they stayed on 10 seconds, were they interested in it? Or did they look away and then look back to their phone? Right. Right? TikTok, of course, that can happen too.
Very easy, though,
you can look away from a video too. But if you're interested, then the video loops. And because everything is a video, it's so much easier to record and feed information back to the algorithm.
Time you spent.
Right. There's tons of parameters that we don't know, but because you get basically a better read on the user engagement, you can give more data to its algorithm, and it can more quickly and accurately determine things that you're into or subconsciously into, because maybe you don't realize it, but you've been on 5 TikToks that are 30 seconds long, watched all of them, thought they weren't related, but TikTok has an attribute like influencers or something, whatever the attribute is, was assigned to that 5 videos.
Oh, it's like you show this person more. Yeah, show this person more stuff like this. They clearly are attracted to, let's say there's a dolphin in the video, dolphins or cats. But it's the same thing with beauty. It will be like, oh, so they're clearly attracted to blondes. They're clearly attracted to fitness influencers. It will do the same thing because it can detect it
a little bit easier than it can, or with it more frequently is really what it is, because how many times do you look at a photo and just scroll on Instagram?
Oh, I don't even scroll on Instagram anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. But on TikTok, you get that user engagement data back right away, and you can skim it out for the people looking away and whatnot. But it's easier to build the persona of each user and what.
Yes.
Because they've got 15,000 categories. And like dolphins, whatever, it could be like you watched 5 different videos. You didn't realize they were all in Florida. TikTok knew they were all in Florida, but now it's like, oh, you're interested in Florida. And then you see like an ad for Visit Florida, and you're like, wow, how did it know I wanted to go to Florida?
So with beauty standards, it's very interesting. Like, pick up somebody else's phone, pick up their TikTok and see what's on their scroll. Like, it was very different. I was logged into somebody else's account, and she grew up in the Midwest and has a very career-focused platform. And I was scrolling through it, and I was like, her feed is so different than mine.
Yeah.
And because it's just like it's wild. So it really does showcase what you are into,
Yeah.
And so pick up someone else's phone and see how different, or if you're curious what people are attracted to, look through their scroll.
And TikTok is, for what I was saying earlier, TikTok is for sure the best representation of this, just because of how, I mean, people have been on it for a couple years now, but because of how quickly and accurately they can correlate all that data about the user. You don't even know what they have data on you on. It's so that's why it feels subconscious, because you don't pick up on everything, but they have the parameters to know what they showed you and know how you interacted with it.
Right. I'm going to swing really far away from social media, but like also maybe not really. I want to talk about plastic surgery.
Yeah.
I have heard so many guys, friends, boyfriends of friends, and people in their circle being like so anti-plastic surgery for their partner, their girlfriend, their fiance, their wife, whatever. And I'm just so curious why they A, feel like they can say anything, B, it makes a big difference to them, or C, like if men tend to be against or for plastic surgery.
When you have guys that are like, don't want their partners to get plastic surgery, a lot of it, not all people.
And we're not talking about major plastic surgery. We're talking about Botox filler, maybe like a facelift at 60, you know.
I think one part of it is what I was saying is guys don't really they hear plastic surgery and they think Kim Kardashian.
They think massive changes.
And there's a lot of guys who, even if they think Kim Kardashian is attractive, are like, well, she's just plastic. Like, maybe you're objectively hot, but like, I'm not attracted to you or whatever. Right. And so it probably comes from a lack of knowledge, a bit of fear, not really understanding, thinking that the girl is going to change. And then the other big side of it, I think, which is maybe it's a self-righteous thing and it's not the true intention, is well, you're perfect the way you are. I don't want you to change. You don't need to change. Now, why guys think that they'd like really have a final say on that? Like, I don't really know. Because it's not like, you know, girls would tell the guy not to go to the gym. Like, I get it's very different, but you're working on your body. Like, and there's obviously levels to it. Like, you know, if you've been very open about getting a nose job and you do Botox and whatever, but if you would be like, okay, well, now I'm going to like do like a neck elongating thing, or now I'm going to do this. I'm going to get injections in my ass. Like, I'm going to do all this stuff. I'd be like, okay, like, why do you want to do all this stuff? It's permanent and you don't need to because you're beautiful. But at the end of the day, if that's like what you chose you wanted to do, that's fine. But I think that last 20 seconds right there encapsulated how guys think decently well about it. I think a lack of knowledge, they're scared. And then to what I said to you, like if you know, there's levels to it. If little Botox, like nose job, they probably just don't understand. And they probably go to like, they think about botched, or they think about like
seeing the people on TV who have horrible looking work.
So much, exactly. Just so much plastic done over the years.
There's
like they just
so much
get it.
range of the conversation of plastic surgery. And like, I've just seen some men just slam it down so quickly. And it's like,
guys do plastic surgery too.
That too. Like I mean, I know
more than you think.
I'm sure.
And there's stuff like, you know, guys will do stuff like you hear ads in LA about like cool sculpting or this or that.
I'm
like
sure.
That is technically plastic surgery.
I mean,
or maybe not surgery, but it's like,
people would put that in the like
you would know better than me.
What did they call that? Like medical spa treatment or like
but
whatever.
It's adjacent.
Procedure. It's not considered surgery. Procedure. Medical procedure.
It's adjacent at worst and pretty much the same thing at
best. It's a gateway.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's so much harsh reaction to it when evidently men can be doing
it. That's why I think it's a lack of knowledge. You know, in LA or New York or other big, or even just regardless of where you are, if you're super into pop culture, you know, you'll see all the plastic surgery. You'll kind of see it and like you're like not desensitized to it, but you have more knowledge of it or maybe understand what it is a little better. Whereas I think there's parts of the world, in the country too specifically, where it's just not as common and you don't see it. So if And you know, maybe normally like the partner wouldn't say, hey, I'm going to go get a nose job or something. But I think in certain areas or with people that have had certain, I don't want to say upbringings, but are just certain exposures.
I almost think, I kind of disagree, to be completely honest. I think that some people, I hear what you're saying. If you've never been exposed to plastic surgery, they have a harsher reaction. But I also think men who have been extremely exposed to plastic surgery and have seen bad work or like, you know, someone really fucked themselves up, also are like a little averse to it too.
No, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, like even if you were trying to do some crazy shit, it would be up to you. But I would say if you were trying to do a million things, I'd be like, okay, like why are you trying to do this? Like, you know what you've had done is like, why do you want a nose? Because I want a fucking nose job. It's a nose job. I'm not like altering my entire body. It's one of the most common ones. You know, I think it's also different inside of the category, like what is being done. And I think that's why I keep going back to the lack of knowledge. If you don't know the knowledge,
Yeah.
and you're not prefaced well, a guy might just be like, no, don't do that. Or
Totally.
have a negative reaction.
All right. Again, and we're going to talk about
switch it up.
Bodies again. Back in the day, even the media, not even back in the day, I still feel like the media magazines love to put like how to lose 25 pounds or like,
yeah, they for sure do.
Right.
Or
so
all the
I'm going to show you
publications.
2 images
Okay.
of very famous women that, you know, you probably know. I just want to hear your reaction to them.
Okay.
So this is Jessica Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I remember this. She was basically like, yeah, I'm done being crazy skinny. I'm just gonna like have the body I want.
Right.
That the whole thing.
But look at her. Do you think she like? How does she look?
So I think she looks good. I think she looks fine. But I think you'll also have people say because of what she used to look like.
Sure.
That hey, like that's not what she used to look like. And she was in, like we talked about earlier, that early 2000s kind of skinny blonde thing.
Yeah.
So you look at one of the skinny blonde icons of the early 2000s, and now she's not as skinny. And people have a harsh reaction.
The thing,
even though she still looks better than 99% of people.
Here's the thing. That's exactly the thing. This was on the cover and in magazines and all over, people saying she looks fat.
Right.
This is not a fat person.
No.
But the fact that we labeled this just because she wasn't as skinny as she once were fat is horrific.
Horrible.
Horrific.
Yeah, like, I mean, sure, you can say gained weight because that's the reality, but that doesn't mean she's fat. Like,
no, like this is like a very normal average body.
That's what most people look like.
Right. Moving on. We're going to...
Especially, like, wasn't she now in, like, her mid to late 30s, like, at this point, too?
Right. And we did the same thing.
It's one thing, and, you know, I mean, not that we're all the way up there yet, but I think, you know, you can tell when you're 18 to 22, like she was in her, you know, heyday.
Right, she's younger. We're all
so
better
easy,
metabolisms.
It's so easy to look crazy skinny. And now it's like she is still skinny for her age group, probably. But
probably.
Like,
she's still in the public eye, eats great. I'm sure works out a ton. And like, what not? She's just not a rail.
Yeah.
All right, here's another photo.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a good one.
So this is Khloe Kardashian back in the day and like the start of Keeping Up.
Mm-hmm.
And she's definitely not as fit or have the look she has now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, someone who is extremely categorized for being fat.
Right.
And in reality is
not
that fat.
I'll give you maybe a difference on that one.
What?
That was the way she was like introduced to people.
Right. So
B,
we assume she looks like this.
Right. But B, she does look it's not being fat. It's like she probably, in terms of you're trying to categorize how fat are you in that picture versus the Jessica Simpson picture, it's probably about the same, but she looks more unhealthy. She has like a fattier face. And so I think
but it could be her bone structure.
Right. But what I'm saying is I think people associate like that more of a unhealthy look with you're fat versus like Jessica Simpson was skinny and now she doesn't even look fat and she doesn't look unhealthy, but she's not skinny anymore, so she's fat. Khloe Kardashian came in looking unhealthy because she was overweight.
But is she really overweight?
I mean, I think given the fact of how much, I mean, it could be not, but how much fat is sitting in her face and where certain fat was sitting. I mean, okay, like, you know, if you look at someone like me, like, I don't consider myself fat, but like, I can tell I'm overweight because of where some of my fat sits and where I have fat on my body. It's just, it's less healthy than being skinny. But I think in regards to the beauty standards, they see that, oh, she's got a double chin and she's chunky, so she's fat.
Right. So
and now she's skinny and you're like, wow, look at that. She looks amazing.
Right. But like,
she was probably healthy the way she was.
She probably was like honestly fine to begin with.
Yeah.
But also like at the same time, we've entered into such a culture too of like, you know, we should be accepting of more body types as we should. Like if somebody also wants to lose 5 pounds, like, is that the worst thing? They didn't say they wanted to lose 50 pounds. Like, is saying, like, I just want to lose a little bit of weight, like, toxic to say?
I think there's people out there who look at it as toxic. But in reality, the people who probably feel that way are just, you know, they're deciding that for themselves. You have no agency over someone else's body. If someone says, I want to lose 5 pounds, like, you're skinny, right? If you say, I want to lose 5 pounds, that's your body. You feel like you want to lose 5 pounds, you're going to try and lose 5 pounds. If someone's 40 pounds overweight and they want to lose 10 pounds and they get offended because they're like, well, you're already skinny, No, I'm sorry. Like, it's my body. I get to do what I want. I'm not being like, I'm so skinny and you're fat. Now I'm going to lose more weight and be even skinnier. It's
Mhm.
like, no, I'm like, I'm in a good place, but I feel like losing 5 pounds. We're getting married and upcoming wedding. We're going to lose some weight. You look amazing, but you still
Thanks.
want to lose 5 pounds.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but that exactly. Yeah,
Like,
whatever. End of story. Individuals, I don't think there should be any like, and no one, it's not your body. You have no agency over someone else's body. If
right.
they want to lose 5 pounds and you want to get butthurt
They want to
about
gain
it,
5 pounds. You want to
exactly.
do
If
whatever.
you want to
it's
get
fine.
butthurt about it, get butthurt about it, but don't make it someone else's problem because that's not right.
That's a very fair way to put it. And I think it's fair to say we've had a lot of progression in this space about, accepting different body types and whatnot. And it's at the end of the day, mind your own business and like do whatever. I do appreciate when people are honest about what they did to lose weight.
Sure.
And even if it wasn't healthy, being like, I acknowledge this wasn't healthy, but here's what I did. I like that too. I like when there are people who get out and say, I'm this size and it's the most confident I've ever been. I think there is equal sides to the coin, and we've made a lot of progression in this space.
No, definitely. I would say like overall, how the biggest way the beauty standards have changed since like when we were kids is now like there is still something that's in, but it was almost like back then, if you weren't in, you weren't accepted in like mainstream culture. Now it's like there's a lot of different things you can do. Maybe something's the most popular, but you know what? There's a most popular flavor of ice cream too.
Right.
Like,
there's so much more acceptance of
cream.
smaller niches. But I do want to talk about something that I actually don't think we've had as much progression
interesting.
in.
Okay.
And I think is coming. And I hope is coming. And that's kind of the idea of ageism. And for instance, I'll give the classic example that I think we're all very aware of. Like, as men get older, they are, the gray fox.
Oh, they looked at as attractive.
Oh, they're so
attractive.
attractive. They're attractively aging. And women, it is still a little bit like, oh, you don't want to get old.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Right.
Like, let's look at George Clooney. Like, guy only seems to get better and better with age. Same with Brad Pitt, whatnot. That is like not quite the case for women as much. And I think it's coming. I think it's changing. I think that's going to be the next push is ageism. But like,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, for instance, like, I think men do get attractive when they get older, but like, do other men always look to see the youngest looking thing in the room?
Right. Yeah. No, it's fair. I mean, and I can't really, it's hard for me to say because I'm still,
I'm young.
We're younger.
Young.
You're on the. I mean, we're not the youngest kids.
We're not the youngest kids on the block, but we're not the oldest by far.
Yeah, we're still younger. We're still in our 20s. Although I'm barely hanging on to those 20s at this point.
You're on the last ladder.
I am.
I'm two steps down. You're one step down.
Yeah, we're hitting that 3 next year. But I think that it's definitely something that will change over time. I think it almost is more of like a style thing too. One of the reasons why guys can age easier is because, I think, muscles are looked at as attractive, but like for a girl, like when I put on a suit, like even if I'm not as skinny or as ripped as some of the other guys, I look just as good as them.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And so a guy just has to dress sharp as the years go on and lean into like the kind of silver fox look. The classy look. And it's attractive. Women, you're thinking like, well, how am I going to dress hot? Low cut dress, short, tight, exposed.
Those are the things that are considered conventionally attractive.
Sexy.
Right?
And then there's the elegant side, long dresses and stuff. But those are typically looked at as like you wear a long dress for wedding or for like big events. And it's like not really looked at as unattractive, but it's looked at as like, this is kind of what you do here. But then, you could go to the club and a guy would be in a suit and a girl would be in 6-inch high heels and a tiny little dress. And like, that's hot. So I think as the shift will be, well, when women are in long dresses and have, they're in their 50s, their 60s, but they're dressing elegant, like, kind of what men are pushed into, that is classy, that is attractive. And I do really think that guys that are of the same age, like 6-year-old guys, 6-year-old women, look at women and are like, you are attractive. Like, I actually am really attracted to you.
They don't look at the 20-year-old and be like...
I think they think both, whereas someone my age, I don't necessarily look at a 6-year-old woman and be like, wow, she's hot. But I used to think that like 18 and 20-year-olds were hotter than like 30-year-olds. And now that we're almost 30, like you look a lot hotter than a lot of these, like 20-year-olds basically, right?
Sure.
So I think the perspective, the to wrap it up here, I think the perspective changes, but the cultural perspective for women so far
there's a double standard.
There's a double standard. It gets pushed away, where even if the elderly men think the elderly women are attractive, the cultural standard is, well, the gray foxes are good looking and the women in their 50s or 60s
they age and it's out.
They're aged and they're done.
I think that's completely the double standard. I hope that is the next thing we start to see.
Right. Because, I mean, you can look at like, I'm trying to think of like someone, I'm not going to come with some, but you could look at like some famous actress, 55 years old, like, I can't think of someone. I'm sorry. I'm so bad at this. They go up to accept their Oscar. They're in a long, gorgeous dress. Like that should be like, yeah, you're 55. You look amazing. You're killing it. And people will say that, but it doesn't line up with the conventional beauty standard
the idea of
a woman, but it does with the man. And to your point, that is hopefully the next thing. Cause it is kind of fucked up. Like, I mean, they do look good. They are gorgeous. It's
and
just
there's so many
era.
things, so many things to get in with that. But I just do think that's the space where there's still a double standard.
I agree.
Anyways, so babe, thanks for coming on to talk about something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone.
I think I did okay. I give myself like a 7. We'll get a 7 out of this.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Confessions of a Wannabe It Girl. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the show. And as always, we'll see you next Tuesday.